Anechoic Like My Soul, an ultrasound podcast. Hello, my name is Efren and I am your host. How is everyone doing this week? I hope you had a wonderful week. I hope it was non stressful and I hope you're enjoying your weekend. Last weekend was Valentine's Day. Hope everyone had a nice Valentine's Day, whether you're single or taken, that you got to enjoy with your friends and family. And more importantly, the day after Valentine's Day, you got to buy all the chocolate you wanted because it's on clearance. I stocked up on Reese's. I love Reese's. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the SPI, or the dreaded SPI, or whatever you want to call it. It's a headache. I know. It's a pain in the ass. I know. I went through it. SPI, ultrasound physics, it's not something you're going to be able to get away from. You really won't because ultrasound is deep into the ultrasound physics, especially if you go into vascular and cardiac. It's all about ultrasound physics, about aliasing, uh, getting your PRF right, the baseline, all that's wonderful stuff, and then you get a lot of artifacts. You're gonna scan all kinds of different people, and you're gonna get people with ecogenic livers, and you can get reverberation artifacts when you're scanning the gallbladder, and even mirror artifacts. Like sometimes I've seen cysts in the posterior right lobe of the liver. It's like right next to the diaphragm, and because the diaphragm is like a huge mirror, you'll see a mirror artifact. So like it looks like there's two cysts, and that's stuff you need to learn, and that's stuff you need to know. And like I said, it's not going to go away anytime soon or ever. Also, another point that another little fun fact you should know, which I discovered recently. Apparently, if you take your SPI and pass it, if let's say, okay, I took my SPI this year, I passed it. I also took my abdomen and OBGYN this year, I am good. Then 5 years from now, if you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go for my vascular now. I feel confident. I think it's time to get the vascular credential. But since it's been 5 years since you took and passed your SPI, you probably have to retake it again. So the SPI is technically only good for 5 years, and after those 5 years, if you want to take a different credential, then you have to retake it again. I was like, oh, hell no. So basically, once you pass your SPI, make sure you get every credential you can within 5 years. Otherwise, you have to retake it again. Sorry, but that's the truth. I just recently found that out. There's a Facebook group called Sonographers Do It in the Dark. There's another one too. I think it's called Just Sonography. And, you learn a lot. They provide a lot of information. The Just Sonography group is really student friendly. So if you guys want to check that out, go on Facebook and join those groups. You won't regret it. You'll get all the information. And if you have any questions, they'll be more than glad to answer them for you. All right. Now, down to the nitty gritty. For my general education classes, I had to take like mathematical physics or math physics, and that was not easy. Let me tell you. Apparently, even the respiratory therapists have to take that class too. I was like, really? Wow. But I mean, technically speaking, there isn't that much math involved in ultrasound because the machines kind of do all the calculations for you, but you still need to know how to do stuff. And since I'm in a private school, it's accelerated program, so each class was only 5 weeks. So I had to take physics for 5 weeks. And those 5 weeks were torture. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to pass this class? Like, I don't know what to do. But the teacher we had, he was so good. He was very open to staying after class and offer tutoring to anybody who needed, or if you needed clarification and stuff, he was more than willing to, sit down and, explain it to you. He was very flexible with the assignments as well. And, like every time we had a test, he would like put us in groups and have us help each other out. So, I mean, it's in the best interest of the school for having like having all the students pass the class, of course, but he did really go the extra mile to help us, especially if he saw that we were struggling too much with the math. And once we got that done, which was like a triumph, like I was very proud of myself. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I actually took this class, I passed it, and now I'm going to start my core classes. Now, for ultrasound physics, it's more on theory on how things work. And we're like, okay, this is going to be so much easier than the other physics class. And yeah, we were wrong. It's not that much easier. I mean, sorry if I'm breathing too loudly, but I'm not used to talking to like this much. Or maybe because I'm trying to talk a lot, that's why I'm like out of breath. Eh, work in progress, people. Work in progress. um, because the way the class was set up for my school, we would go over one term will be, each class was 5 weeks in duration. So like the first 5 weeks, we will go like chapters 1 through 3, and then the following 5 weeks, another 2 or 3 chapters, and so on, until we finish the book. Our physics teacher used the Sidney K. Edelman physics book. It's the little square green book, ultrasound understanding ultrasound physics, the fourth edition. And apparently, it's like the gold standard for ultrasound physics. Like everything you need to pass the SPI is in that book. So all of her lectures were based on that material. And apparently, Edelman used to, well, the family still does little conferences for physics and they're expensive too. I don't know. I think they're doing now webinars because of the pandemic, but they used to have conferences in LA, California, Nevada, Miami. But of course, they were terribly expensive. Like, you will spend the entire weekend going over the book, and then at the end of the seminar, I think they would sign you off to take the SPI, and then you could take the SPI right away. So that's like one way people would, one resource people would use to, pass the SPI. They would go spend a weekend just studying ultrasound physics, hearing it from the author himself. I think he's retired, and I think it's the daughter that does the seminars now. And at the end of the weekend, you were good to take the SPI. But again, very expensive. Sorry. Um, so our teacher, basically, she gave us study guides. She would go over the book left and right. She was very involved. A little too involved, if you ask me, because she actually takes the SPI several times a year so she can be up to date on what changes they're making, or what things to look out for, so she can tell her students like, oh yeah, like the new thing is like, um I think they got rid of the console questions. Like, the console questions were a big thing, but now I think they got rid of them, or at least they were planning on getting rid of them for now. Console, yeah, she was like, console questions were a huge subject. She was like, okay, if you get any kind of these questions, you only have to switch one thing. Don't be switching around everything you see. Just one single thing and move on. And basically, she would show us like how they could word different questions, how convoluted they can be, or how simple they can be. and how like different things have different names, and you have to like learn all the formulas and the different names because they can confuse you with that. When in fact, it's just a simple question. And she would take would take the SPI several times a year, and I think she was trying to be on the committee for the SPI where she would actually get to write out questions for the SPI. And I'm like, wow, you really are involved into this. And the material itself is not easy. I remember we hated the class. I remember we didn't like her too much at first, but especially since it was an accelerated program, like I feel like we just needed that extra time to let that information sink in and just simmer. And once we had the appropriate time to kind of let it to process it, then we would be good. But because it was accelerated, it was like bam, 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 like overload, overload, overload. Sorry if that was too loud. And yeah, it wasn't easy. It's a lot of information to take in, and you're gonna burn through a lot of information. The book looks small, but it's very deceitful. Like it's a small book, but it has a ton of information. I would say like too much information for one person to digest. In a single sitting. But as once we were done with going over the book, we would have a review class afterwards. So basically, each day we would go through several chapters. Like in 5 days, we went through the entire book all over again, and it was a little easier. We are like, why were we so like mad about this? Like this isn't that bad, and like we kind of relaxed because I think the information finally was starting to sink in for us. For the review class, we even had like students from other cohorts join us because they either took the SPI and didn't pass it, and they needed to take their review class in order for the school to pay for it again, or they were getting ready to take their SPI and they just felt that they needed that extra review. Um, so for the SPI, my preparation was I basically read and reread the book. At the end of each chapter, there's questions or review questions, and I read and reread those, especially at the end of the book. There's like, it said page 423, there's exam review, and there's, let me see, I have the book with me right now. There is 600? No. There's 629 questions to go over, so that's plenty of material for you to study as well. It will help you for the SPI. Like I said, this book is the gold standard for SPI. And also, another little resource we had was in our library. They had the Davies SPI exam review. So all the computers had it installed, so you can like say at the end of the day, you can go over to the library and just do like mock exams or go over like the program will give you mock exams and then give you a score at the end. Or if you wanted to go over questions and then get an explanation on why you were right or wrong, there was an option for that too. So it's actually pretty good. I enjoyed it. I wish I had spent more time on it, but when we finished our review class, we all had our SPI dates of the exam set up. So we already had our appointments, and I was going over to the library and using the Davies SPI review. It's pretty good because it'll go over it goes over a lot of questions. It will give you explanations. It'll give you the answer and the explanation for it, and then if you wanted to try out like a mock exam, like it'll give you a test of random questions similar to the SPI. And I thought it was really helpful. I wish I had spent more time, but when we finished the review class, got our appointments, that's when the pandemic hit. So, like, We went from the campus had to close down, and then we went to online learning, which was it was good and bad. Like we had to take all the OV classes online, so that was hard. I felt that was too much information to do online. Like I wish we were able to stay in campus for that, but unfortunately it was out of our control. But at least we were still learning, in our once we were still learning while we're like, quarantining at home. But I was able to uh, take the SPI before. Well, it was a start of the pandemic, but it was before there was like a full blown lockdown. Like I remember going to the site. Uh, it was by appointment only, obviously. You had to when you got to the door, there was a sign with instructions. Like they wanted you to go to the restroom, wash your hands, come back, enter, make sure you had them wearing a mask, and there was a camera in the hallway, so they were watching you, making sure you went and washed your hands and did all of what that was being asked of you. You walk in, you empty your pockets, make sure you leave your cell phone and your smartwatch in the car. Make sure you don't wear baggy clothes. Make sure you don't take like a big old purse. Just take your wallet, a simple wallet with your ID. If you have family members, maybe have them drive you to the site and then they can wait for you in the parking lot with your bag and just go in with your ID. That's all you're going to need. And I remember I only had my keys in my wallet. They gave me the key for a locker. I placed them in. They didn't ask me to pat myself down. I know a lot of my classmates said that they had to like pat themselves down like from top to bottom, like literally. But I don't know what they were wearing though. They might have been wearing baggy clothes, so maybe that's the reason why. I think I was wearing like a t-shirt and jeans, but the jeans weren't baggy at all. They were more like form-fitting jeans, I guess. So don't wear baggy clothes, form-fitting wear. Keep it simple because well, at my site, they were all super nice. It was easy. I went into the room, and other people were in there too, taking their exams. But it was like there was a limit of how many people were in there. I think there was like maybe four of us, and I think they could fit at up to 10 people at one time. But because of the pandemic, they were restricting how many people were in there at a time. Obviously. Um, I sat at the desk. There's a computer. There's a camera pointed right at you, so they're looking at you. They gave you the scratch paper, so you can write down your notes. I didn't use it at all though, and I took my test. It was I want to say it was fairly quick. Um, I raised. I didn't like some places. I guess you had to raise your hand when you were done, and then someone would go pick you up and escort you out of the room. With me, it's like, oh yeah, once you're done, just stand up and walk out of the room. I'm like, really? Okay. It was very simple, but it was it was a smallish room, but they had like a big window and people were watching you, and obviously they had the monitor with all the camera like watching every single student, obviously, and there was only four of us, so it wasn't uh that difficult for them to monitor us, especially since only four students. That's all they had to watch over. I walk out. I give them the scratch paper, the marker they give me, and then as I'm walking out, they give me the results. I was able to pass, thank God, and then just took the stuff out of my locker and then left, and that was it. Some people were telling me that, oh yeah, that some sites were very rude to them. They were very strict. They had them pat themselves down up from head to toe. Um, I don't know why would they be rude, but I guess it depends on what kind of people they were dealing with, and probably they were under a lot of stress too. So be nice. Don't be rude to them. Like I said, leave your cell phone, smartwatch in the car. Um, and try to be as nice, polite. Don't start no shit, and go in and take your test. Um, there's like 14 different versions, I was told, of the test. There are some that are very simple, and some that are completely difficult because the questions are that convoluted. I want to say I got one of the simple ones. Mine was more artifact heavy. It was a lot of questions about artifacts. And I was like, oh my God, it can't be this simple. And then I got some very convoluted questions. So I was like, I have no idea what they're asking me. Um, yeah, I feel like I'm not telling you enough. If you have specific questions about the SPI and the ultrasound physics class, let me know. Um, like I said, for me, I basically went over all the study guides that the teacher provided us. I went over the book, I read and reread, like one or two chapters every day. And then I went over all the review questions at the end of each chapter and at the end of the book. I did spend a little time on the Davies CD, but like I said, it was only, I think I used it maybe 5 times. But then the pandemic hit, and I was like, ugh. But I feel like it was good little review for it was. I feel like if you needed like a practice test, the Davies physics review CD is really good. Find out from your school if they have that in your library, if you can borrow it, or if they have it installed on the computer, and then you can go in and practice a little bit each day. That will help you out a lot. Um, I don't think it's that expensive. I think it's like around $60 on Amazon. But again, if you have the Edelman book, that's all you need. You don't have to spend any extra money at all. Um, I know there's a website. I think it's ultrasound review URR. Oh, I forgot the name of it. Let me hold on. I have my phone. I'll check it right now. Let me Google it. Oh, I think it's ultrasound registry review. And it's basically it gives you uh you can go over courses like say abdomen. I'll give you lectures to go over. It's like a lot of material, and it gives you a lot of mock exams, and they're like very difficult mock exams. But if you score really well on their exams, you'll probably score really well on the ARDMS and the SPI. But of course, it's very expensive as well. Let me see if here we go. Yeah, it's ultrasoundregistryreview.com. And apparently, a lot of people say it works. Like, they have had good results from using this service. But again, you have to pay for it, and it's expensive. And I wouldn't say, yeah, don't waste your money. Like, really, like, if you have whatever the teacher gives you, like, they'll probably give you study guides to go over, go over them, highlight everything you need to highlight, make your notes. Oh, the other thing I also went over were my class notes. I had like a thick pile of notes, but I went over them because the teacher would tell us, okay, make note of this, make note of that. So I would go over all the little notes that I would make, or the teacher would tell us to write down, and that would help us for the exam. So it's like, it's really up to you to pass the SPI. I mean, if you're giving all the materials that you need, it's up to you to, sit down, read it, go over it, you know, reread it until you're like sick of it, and then you'll be ready. Like, and also find out from your school if you have options if you don't pass the SPI. For my school, they did have the option if you failed your SPI the first time, you have to take tutoring classes with uh, the physics teacher. And at the end of those 6 classes, if she feels that you're ready for the SPI, the school will pay for you to take the SPI a second time. So, like, find out from your school if they have that kind of option for you. Find out if they have any of the Davy CDs for the SPI where you can go over questions and, practice mock exams. Um, and hopefully, your school uses the Edelman green ultrasound physics book because, like I said, that's the gold standard. All the material you need is in that book. So hopefully they base the lectures on that book and all the study guides are based on their book. That will help you tremendously. But again, you have to put in the work, you have to put in the effort. It's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You have to go over the book, read and reread the material, go over all those review questions. And also, I know there's SPI flashcards. There's SPI flashcards out there from Edelman, but basically they just go over the book. I mean, they come in with an audio CD, and the audio CD, the only thing they do is just read off the questions from the flashcards. So you just follow. If like you start reading the flashcards, and the CD basically just reads them in order. I mean, they're good if you want to try to understand the material better, but I wouldn't say they're good for exam preparation, if that makes sense. And I wouldn't waste my money on those, honestly. I got to see them. Someone bought them, and I was like, oh, that's it. Okay, but basically, if you have the book, you don't need those flashcards. So, I hope this was informational for you. I hope I kind of helped you with the SPI. I mean, it's difficult. The lectures are difficult. Like, if you feel you want to, like, kind of quit or you just don't want to deal with this anymore, trust me, I know the feeling. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy. You have to put in a lot of work. And sometimes you just have to let it sink in. Like, let it simmer for a little bit, and then you'll start getting it as well. Pay close attention to the Doppler chapter. Our teacher made a big deal about it. Like, that's one of the most important chapters in the book because the more difficult versions of the SPI are very Doppler heavy. So keep that in mind. What else can I tell you that will help you out? Like, get into study groups. Maybe you have that one person who's really good at writing up notes and see if you can make a copy of her notes or his notes. Yeah, like just like once you start your externship and you start scanning patients left and right every day, you'll find that you're actually using physics without even knowing it. You're doing adjustments to the scale, the PRF, angling the box, pulse waving. Pulse waving, oh my god, that sounds real. By using pulse wave. Like, it kind of becomes second nature without you realizing it. So don't let it overwhelm you. Like, it'll come to you. You will understand it. It will sink in. And once you pass that SPI, you're good to go for at least 5 years. So make sure you take any board you need to take within 5 years of your SPI. Well, can't think of anything else to add right now to this conversation, but again, if you have any questions, email me at anekoelikeMysoul@gmail.com without the exclamation mark. I also am posting these episodes on YouTube, so you can leave me comments and questions there as well. If there's anything specific, please let me know. Um, and I guess that's it for today's episode. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful week. Study hard. Like I said, don't let it overwhelm you. And if you need more specifics on certain subjects, let me know and let me see if I can help you or like provide resources for you to look at. Okay? All right. See you later. Bye.